Hello, everyone. I am Brady Briggs back for another episode of the Combat Logic. You got Tyler Avery back here. How are you, Tyler?
How's it going, guys?
All right, we're going to be talking about what happened over the weekend in UFC and Bellator. Now, I'm going to start out with the UFC prelims where Dana Baggero just ran right through Brandon Davis. And Brandon Davis has never been knocked out before. He came back to the UFC after winning 4 straight. He's 14-8. You know, he doesn't have a good record, but he's actually a really good fighter, pretty much all around. And Dana just melted right through him.
And he got outstruck significantly in that fight. He only threw 7 total strikes to 22.
That's crazy.
He also got knocked down. And there's he also got knocked down. So a lot happened in those 2 minutes that the fight lasted, and it wasn't looking good for Davis early.
Yeah, man, no, that was upsetting for me. But on the other hand, Dana Baggero, he's a really good fighter, man. I'm pretty sure I'm butchering his last name, but he is now 10-2. He lost his UFC debut to Alatang Haley, but he's 3-0 since with 3 knockouts. He beat Kai Kara-France a while ago before either of them got to the UFC. I'm excited for his future.
And I also think Brandon Davis will be back.
Oh yeah, me too. He's a really good fighter. His record don't say shit about him. I can't believe he can make 135 pounds either. That's remarkable to me.
Right.
Next one, we're going to talk about Danny Roberts and Ramazan Emeev. No, this fight was went a lot like I thought it would. I don't know if I would have picked Roberts to win. I think I picked Emeev to, grind him out, and he almost did. I mean, it just seems like Roberts had a little bit more left in the tank, and he was willing to throw it on a little bit more.
Yeah, Danny Roberts always comes in shape. He's always lean, not carrying a lot of body fat. So you'd look at him and expect that he would be a guy that can last into the longer rounds. He's kind of tall, I feel like, in a way. He's long.
Yes, he is. He's a very good athlete too, very powerful. He's a pro boxer, got good kicks.
And both of these guys were pretty fairly matched up, actually.
I agree. That's why I was so excited for it.
They both were looking to take the fight to the ground. They were both striking as well. They both had about the same control time. It was a pretty well-matched fight where Danny Roberts, I feel like he's an experienced guy. He just stayed true to the course and got the win with his cardio and experience.
Yeah, he did. Emeev had only lost once in the UFC prior. He was like 4-1, 5-1 in the UFC. He's a former M1 champion. He strikes me as a guy. He's good at everything, but he's not great at anything.
Right.
He's very good. He's very technical. He's got the skills everywhere. He's good at wrestling. He's good at grappling. Good at strike. You know what I mean? But
he's a master of none.
Right. He's a round winner, if that makes sense, which isn't a bad thing. It's worked out for him most of the time. But Roberts was able to get the win this time. I was happy to see that. I like Danny Roberts.
Yeah.
All right, Bruno Silva knocked out Andrew Sanchez in the preliminary main event. And unfortunately, neither of us caught this one, but we know what happened. Sanchez secured 7 takedowns against
7 takedowns in 7.5 minutes, 7 minutes and 53 seconds control time.
Yeah, that's
most
crazy.
Of the fight.
If he would have,
the whole fight.
If that would have went to the scorecards, man, he would have won it.
He essentially held him down for both of the other rounds almost. And Bruno Silva still managed to catch up with strikes towards the end of the fight. He must have really put him on him really good in that 3rd round because he more than doubled Sanchez's significant strike output, which goes to show a lot of Sanchez's strikes were ground and pound.
Yeah.
And he did surpass him in total strikes as well, even though he spent 90% of the fight on the bottom. So that goes to show that he had a really good 3rd round.
Right. See, that's just like Andrew Sanchez's last fight with Makhmud Muradov. He was getting picked apart for the first couple of rounds. He wasn't out wrestling him, but he was getting picked apart for the first couple of rounds, and then Muradov was able to finish him. But Bruno Silva, man, this kid is for real. He was on The Ultimate Fighter a few years ago with a 7-5 record. He has lost once since then. He's now 21-6. He was coming off a KO victory over Wellington Turman, who was also Sanchez's last victory, also via KO. So it's a good matchup. And Silva's beat Alexander Slemenko before. He's an M1 Challenge champion. It's a really dangerous dude. Obviously, I'm very excited to see what he can bring to the table next time.
Absolutely. Before people get to the UFC, I wanted to touch on something. Before fighters get to the UFC, I try not to get too hung up on their records because there can be a significant difference in the type of opponents that your management decides to pick for you. A lot of guys like to shoot for the stars and fight the hardest, toughest guy with the biggest name they can at all times, and they'll have some losses on their record. And then there are some guys that are undefeated for 18, 20 fights, but they've never really tested themselves, and then they have a harder time when they get to the UFC. I feel like some of the guys that are used to taking the tough fights, once they get to the UFC, they start to get good management for how they pick what fights for them, and that you start to see them like blossom more and start to get strings of wins because they're not just fighting the top guy they can at the moment. They're picking the smart fight for them.
Yeah, you see a lot of examples of that for sure. See the main event, opening up the main card. Nate Landauer fought Ludwig Klein, which he pulled off a very big upset. He was like a minus 350 underdog, or a plus 350 underdog rather, going into this fight. Dude, Ludwig Klein made his UFC debut with a 16-2 record. He knocked out Shane Young in that fight with an uppercut. And it was a beautiful knockout. Shane Young is the more durable dudes in the sport. And improved his record to 17-2. We were like, wow, we got a new killer at 145. Then he lost to the Ultimate Fighter champion, Mike Trizano, which is not really much of a shame. And he's a good fighter, even though I picked Klein to win that fight too.
Me too.
And then another M1 champion, Nate Landauer, who was 1-2 in the UFC. He got knocked out with flying knees in both of those losses. Was able to wear on him and get the submission in round 3. Ludwig opened up round 1 looking really good. The first half of round 2, he looked really good. And then Nate started to pour it on. He picked up in round 3 where he left off in round 2 and picked up his first submission victory of his entire career.
Yeah, Ludwig Klein is extremely lean and extremely muscular. He's one of those guys that having a slow first round versus them isn't really a bad idea because you're really not going to be able to match their kind of output more than likely in the first round. If you try to, you're more than likely going to end up getting caught because you're playing into their game plan. I feel like overall, as this fight went, the underdog completely dominated as a whole. He outstruck him. He took him down. He had some submission attempts. He had a little over 3.5 minutes of control time. So the first, it's hard to compete with a first round of a guy that's that explosive, that athletic, fast. But I feel like he's one of those guys also that as the rounds go, will start to slow down, and that's the time to pour it on, like a Diaz style.
And that's how Mike Trizano was able to beat him too. He didn't like get in his face for a dogfight, but his volume was so much higher than Klein's. Klein couldn't keep up with it. So
absolutely,
that's something for Klein's future opponents to pay attention to. And dude, Landauer almost locked up the Anaconda in round 2, and he didn't have the right angle on it. He was, getting to where he had the right angle on it, but he let go of it. And then he ended up securing in round 3. It was beautiful.
Yeah, man, he's a dog too. I get the vibe from him that like you got to really stop him to beat him. You're not going to break him. He's in the fight until the end. He's a dog.
Will. And he trains with Colby Covington too. So, that's a perfect teammate for that.
Makes sense.
All right. Next up, we got Manon Ferriot and Mayra Bueno Silva. Did you see this one?
I did not.
All right. Well, Manon Ferriot won with her kickboxing. That's what I'll say about that. Jim Miller knocked out Eric Gonzalez. And this was a really back and forth and entertaining fight, man. I was so happy for Jim Miller once this was over. That's just like Nate Landauer secured his first submission victory ever. Jim Miller secured his first ever standing knockout victory in this fight. He had 4 knockout victories prior. All were TKOs from ground and pound, except for one was landed with a knee, and then it was TKO to ground and pound. This was a KO from a punch that Gonzalez just walked right into, and he was starting to land it a lot at the end of the first round too. What'd you think of this one?
Yeah, Jim Miller, what can you say about him? He's ever evolving and never aging.
For real, right?
Whenever he fights, I like to say BJJ doesn't age. BJJ doesn't age because
that's how I thought he was going to win this fight.
Don't decline as you get older. You will always have that grip strength, and you'll always have that ability. It's striking is a different story, but when we're talking about the ground, that's something that can carry on through older ages. And this time we got a little bit a different of a taste. I thought if he won, it was going to be wrapping his neck.
That's what I thought, or an arm or something.
Yeah, but Jim Miller, he must really take good care of himself in between fights, and he must have a really good camp that cares about him and how he's feeling, because he must not have training partners that are beating him down that bad.
Right.
He has longevity still in the sport, and it looks like he could, just who knows when he could stop.
Honestly, he has Lyme disease now. He got that like 4 years ago or something, so he definitely has to take good care of himself.
Yeah, that takes a huge toll on you. My uncle had Lyme's disease, and it affects you long after when you first get it.
Right. Yeah, that's what I hear. And Gonzalez is tough as hell too, man. Like, he's a Mexican. He'd never been knocked out before. Miller just starched him. Like, I really figured, like I said, it would be his grappling, because that's what's gotten him the victory in most of his more recent wins. But there's another thing I want to point out, and that's Jim Miller's inside leg kick. That is one of the most beautiful inside leg kicks I've ever seen in my life, and he throws it in almost every fight.
He's got experience. He knows what works for him, and he knows how to
set. A short guy.
Right. He really knows how to set up his tools.
He does very well. And yeah, you're right. His grappling is just never. He's one of the best grapplers in 155.
Yeah.
Co-main event showcased Andre Arlovski and Carlos Felipe. Now, this was a pretty close fight up until, I don't know, third round. Wait, no, Arlovski won the first 2 rounds, right, and then lost the third. Yeah, Felipe was coming on to him. He had to use all of his range and motion. He was getting tired doing it, but he looked really good, man. Like, Andre Arlovski has now had like 3 or 4 real career comebacks. Like, he's now 4-1. Actually, he's now 5-2 after losing 4 straight. That's pretty fucking crazy. And Carlos Felipe is still only 26 too. Like, he's going to continue getting better, and he's a straight up banger.
I mean, we were just talking about Jim Miller. Andre Arlovski is a similar guy. He has the skills and the physical ability to beat a lot of these guys still at this age. He's not quite the guy he used to be, and he's not a guy who relies on grappling, which would help with age and stuff. But at heavyweight, I feel like the skills that you use at heavyweight they start to decline later on. You carry your power, and that's, they're not ultra fast guys. They're not bouncing around a lot, so they don't really slow down as they get older, because they already weren't speed athletes. And the power kind of carries. I feel like the only thing that doesn't carry is the chin for most of these guys. But Andre Arlovski can still take a punch.
And that's what I'm saying. Their chins. We thought Andre Arlovski's chin was gone a decade ago. Like, before he even came back to the UFC, he'd lost 4 straight then too. Went from 15-5 to 15-9. 3 of those were KOs. We all thought he was done. It's so crazy, man. He always wins decisions nowadays, but dude, like, it's so crazy how he's still winning fights against good fighters. Like, not all of them are great.
I wanted to touch on also that was Andre Arlovski was interviewed at the end of that fight, and they asked him what's in his heart that makes him feel the need to keep fighting, and he says, "I have to because I have a wife and kids." That doesn't sound that great to me.
It doesn't.
It almost makes it seem like he needs to fight like he has no choice, and he has to fight to live right now.
Well, think about it. Fighters that are successful after fighting, it's almost always not because of their fighting career. It's almost always because they venture into something else once they retire. You know,
personalities.
What I mean? Right. So if he's only fought and he hasn't had any side gigs or anything that he's put some effort into, I can see that. And it's really sad, because all other athletes are rich as fuck, and the athletes in the toughest sport in the entire world. It's sad, man. But then again, you can look at Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather, see how big money changes fighters. So I don't know. I'm kind of back and forth with it. I do think that he shouldn't have to fight anymore, though, for money.
Yeah, he's fought an astronomical amount of total fights.
He's got over 50 fights.
Yeah, he should, at this point, he should never have to worry about working or anything of that nature. Regardless, we don't know what he does with his personal money or how he likes to spend his money. you would think
Always to be
would
said.
be okay, or you would hope that maybe like I think a lot of these, I don't want to say American fighters, but a lot of the English and well speaking English fighters, they get good gigs in the UFC after their fighting career is over. They all get set up with jobs within the UFC.
Like desk jobs in
Even
media.
not that good speaking fighters, like Chuck Liddell was fired from the UFC for basically he was given like a position where he was paid and then he didn't do anything. Like
Was he
he was
really?
just getting he was just getting paid salary from the UFC but not actually doing a job.
Damn.
But as Forrest Griffin had the same deal, but
Forrest
he's
has done
doing
his
stuff
job.
in the UFC.
Mm-hmm.
And he's part of the UFC gyms and he
I'm so
helps
glad they're
manage all
doing
that.
Yeah, I'm
So
glad
like
they do that.
a lot of those guys get stuff like that when their career is coming to an end. It'd be nice to see something like that for Andre Arlovski, even though he
Mhm.
isn't an English-speaking guy. That
Well,
it'd be
dude,
cool if they could find something.
actually, they do that for other countries too, because sometimes when my stream ain't working, I'll have to watch the Spanish one or something. They got Brandon
Commentating.
Moreno on there. You
Yeah,
know,
Brandon Moreno's the Spanish commentator.
yeah, they probably got like Khabib or fucking Zabit or somebody for the Russian one. You know, they got
Yeah, exactly. They have somebody, but I feel like that'd be good for him because he doesn't
Yeah, it
need to
would.
fight right now. If he doesn't want to fight right now, he shouldn't have to.
I agree, dude.
He's
And
earned his spot in the UFC. They should help him out.
also, if he doesn't want to fight right now and he's still winning fights, that just speaks even higher of him. That's fucking crazy. Because if you don't want to fight, you know how hard it is to want to fight if you don't want to fight. It's ridiculous. He's still doing it, man. Really proud.
He's probably got a heart of gold.
Yeah, for real. All right, in our main event, this was a very uneventful affair, but Norma Dumont defeated Aspen Ladd via unanimous decision. It says 49-46, 49-46, and 48-47. I don't know where that 48-47 came from. It was either 50-45 or 49-46. But Aspen just couldn't get going, man. And she hadn't fought in 2 years. This is something to make note of. She hadn't fought in 2 years, never fought at 145. And she fought a 145.
It's been that long for Aspen Ladd?
Yeah, dude, she's been out 22 months anyways. Yeah.
That was her last fight was the one where they said you need to step on the gas pedal and then she went out and beat her.
Yep, Yana Kunitskaya. She knocked her out in the middle or the first 30 seconds of the third round. Yeah, that was her last fight, man. And it showed. She did not look good. She looked really tentative.
Yeah.
And also something to be said, Norma Dumont had gone 2-1 in the UFC. Her last one was over Felicia Spencer, former title challenger. All three of those fights happened since Aspen's last fight. So she'd fought 3 times since Aspen had, and it showed. Her jab is a piston, and she really controlled the whole fight with it. There's not too awfully much to be said other than that.
Yeah.
I love Norma Dumont. She's such a gorgeous woman. I was so happy to see her win. I love Aspen too, but
Aspen had a few moments where you know, you could have thought she might have been able to utilize her game plan. She wasn't able to get any takedowns, but Norma Dumont was able to get a takedown, which ended up giving Aspen Ladd, I'm pretty sure, some control time through that. Because I'm pretty sure she had a little bit of top control in that fight.
yeah.
I think that she had a few moments where people were thinking, oh, maybe she can lock in a sub. But Norma Dumont, really strong. She's not an easy submission for anyone, I don't think.
No.
She's a lot physically stronger than a lot of these girls.
Yes,
and
she is.
Aspen Ladd is used to being the tank.
Yeah, she's used to being the stronger party. That's another big thing about it. But the thing with the takedowns, I'm pretty sure Norma secured 1 takedown against her, right?
She did.
Okay. So she now has secured 5 takedowns in her UFC career and hasn't been taken down once. She is a 6-time state champion. Like in Brazil, they have states like we do. So she's a 6-time state champion in Sanda, which is kickboxing with takedowns. And she's a 1-time national champion in Sanda. So that's where her takedowns come from. And they're actually very good. They're really, I wouldn't say unorthodox, but they're not the type of takedowns you usually see people going for in MMA. And it works out really well for her, especially with her striking.
I think that what seems interesting about her style is that her takedowns don't seem traditional because I feel like she's a defensive wrestler in a way. Like she likes to she's really good at stopping takedowns and getting reversals and overpowering someone in their attempts.
She's
but
short,
I think she doesn't go
No.
forward looking just for the takedown.
Nope, never. She literally never does that. Yeah.
That's my type of wrestler right there.
Yeah, dude, she's great, man. She's 7-1 now. I can't wait to see her again. I'm always so excited to see Norma fight. All right, moving on to Bellator, opening up the main card. Henry Corrales won his fight. I can't pronounce this dude's name. Vladislav something. He boxed him up for 3 rounds and won pretty dominantly. That was really good to see him get a win, come back. Brent Primus beat Ben Henderson. Now, I want to talk a little bit about this because Ben Henderson, I know he's older, but whether you've seen this fight or not, I think you could answer. Does he appear to be someone that just never really evolved to you?
I mean, I feel like he had a peak, and when he peaked in WEC / early UFC,
Yeah.
he was the most evolved fighter at the time. One of the most evolved fighters, even maybe a little tiny bit more so than Anthony Pettis, because Anthony Pettis was still more of a specialist at the time, and Benson Henderson was one of the first guys at that weight to kind of try to put it all together. I feel like at this point, he just when he peaked, he just didn't evolve past there, and now you've seen him stay his evolution has basically been the same since then, but he's also gotten older, and his body isn't quite with his mind in the same way it used to be.
I just see him throwing the same 1-2 punch combos. I see him throwing the same leg kicks, the same body kick, that he always has. And that's not a discredit to him. I love Ben Henderson. I always have. And he's actually a pioneer. He invented the calf kick. He also invented that fucking, when he's got you up against the cage, he'll kick you with the front of his foot on your calf. He did that in the first Anthony Pettis
he made
fight.
it
He's done a lot since.
Made it viable.
Yeah, dude. Like, there's a couple things that came from him. I'm so glad that he's a fighter. It would have been so cool to see if he could win a Bellator title too, WEC and UFC champ, and then add Bellator too. It would have been so cool, man. But
Brent Primus is tough, man.
Brent Primus is really good, man. Yeah, he's a very big lightweight. He's got decent striking. It's not great. I don't know if I'd even call it good, but it's decent. And he's probably the best grappler in Bellator right now.
Yeah, he's growing in the sport for sure. He would have been a hard fight for Benson to win at this point. I was just hoping that his experience would have been able to take it. But at this point in his career, he's mostly doing like textbook technical things, and he's not creative anymore.
Right.
He's just, you're right, leg kick, straights, tries to stop the takedown, tries to go for a takedown, tries to go for some basic submissions.
He's been the same fighter for so long.
I don't think we'll see him evolve much because
he
was as evolved as he was going to be, I think, when he was in his physical prime. And I think
it's late.
Now he's just trying to make it last as long as he can. He's still a good fight for anybody because he has technical ability and he has experience and he knows how to win fights sometimes, but I'll root for him always.
I want to say something about Brent Primus. Now, there's been a few people that I've seen say he is the best once-a-year fighter that exists, and that means he fights like once a year. This is the first year that he has fought more than once since his Bellator debut in 2013. All right, so he made his MMA debut in 2010. His next fight was in 2012. He had his Bellator debut and then the next fights in 2013. Fought once in 2014, once in 2015, once in 2016, once in 2017, once in 2018, once in 2019, once last year, and now this was his second fight this year. It is remarkable that he's had the success that he's had while being so inactive, so consistently too.
That just might mean that, from my perspective, the way I look at it, the way that I perceive when I fight, is maybe he just is really he's good at self-analyzing, and he really takes from his fights and goes to the drawing board and works really hard before he goes back. Because even though I didn't do that, from my first to second fight, I remember wanting to take so much time off and just work because I knew exactly what I did wrong. Because I'm super self-aware. I like to think that I'm aware of the things that I do right and wrong in my fights. Maybe he's the same way, and he just really wanted to make sure he was where he needed to be before he's just taking fights all willy-nilly. now maybe he feels more confident in his ways and wants to take more fights now that he feels like he's at the level he needs to be. A lot
Yeah.
of guys say I'm the best, period, and I'll fight anyone anytime ever. And then there's guys that are like, if I want to beat that guy, I want to take my time, grow as an
Mhm.
athlete and an MMA fighter, and then take him when I feel
Agree. That's
like I'm
so
ready.
true. That is so true.
So maybe
Yeah.
that's the case with him. I don't know for a fact, but it gives me that vibe. When you fight once a year consistently, it sounds like you want to get significantly better from fight to fight.
Yeah, it seems like that's exactly what he's done. And he's worked out very well for him. I see on his Wikipedia he also went 5-1 as an amateur, and he earned his black belt after only 6 years. That's pretty remarkable.
That's
Like
unheard of.
BJ, yeah, I know. Like the only thing I can think of that's close to that is BJ. He earned his in 3, which is like really unheard of. But yeah,
You
six
can't
years,
argue with that
six
because,
years is half the amount of time it's supposed to take
yeah.
for jujitsu, anyways. I mean,
I
karate black
mean, I
belt.
know people that have been doing it longer than 12 years and don't have their black belt.
Right, dude, it's fucking crazy.
It takes years for people to get past blue.
Yeah, that's the longest one. It usually takes anywhere from 6 months to 2 years to get blue, depending on who you
Depending.
are. Then you'll be blue for 3 to 5, purple for 2 to 4, brown for like 2, and then black. If you're actively competing or actively training, at least, anyways. I've
It's
never
also
been.
really different from gym to gym.
Yeah, I've never been ranked in it. Yeah, some gyms do stripes, some don't. That's just it all differs. Some fucking make you pay for belt tests, some don't. It's yeah.
Easy.
Light heavyweight main event was pretty shocking. I picked Corey Anderson to win this fight, but I didn't pick him to starch Ryan Bader. Like, I mean, he didn't starch him, but he dusted him off very fucking quickly. Um,
Yeah.
51 seconds, man. I think it was an overhand. I'm not sure, but he came out willing to throw down in this fight. And man, he's looking like one of the best light heavyweights in the world right now.
Yeah, he's 3-0 in Bellator with 3 TKOs right now. So I feel like the
Yeah.
loss that he just had, um,
To yawn.
or yeah, that he didn't just was that his last fight?
It was his last loss.
Okay, so his last fight was
That was against that Dovlich Shamanigov guy.
okay.
That
So I feel like he really shook that loss off, and I also feel like he has something to prove because uh he didn't get quite the publicity and the credibility and uh he just didn't get the credit he deserved
in the
at
UFC.
UFC.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
I feel like we're gonna see him other than maybe a few stylistic matchups that they just might match up well with him. I
Mhm.
feel like we're gonna see him essentially dominate for a while.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, he's fighting Vadim Nemkov next, who he might lose to, but other than that, I see him beating everybody. Like I said, I picked him to win this fight. But going into back to the UFC, dude, I thought after that Johnny Walker win, he should have got a title shot. Even though Walker wasn't a top contender, he was a prospect. Like his last few wins came over. All right, Patrick Cummins, who is not a great fighter, but he is a great wrestler, and Corey mauled him that whole fucking time. He
Yep.
did the same to Glover Teixeira, who the only person to ever do that to Glover before was Phil Davis, one of the best wrestlers ever in the sport, and Alir Latifi, who, it was more uneventful than the first two, but he got past him. Then he knocked out Johnny Walker, who was 3-0 in the UFC with 3 knockouts. So, but then he got knocked out by Jan. But something interesting about Corey, he has wins over the UFC light heavyweight champion, the UFC #1 contender at light heavyweight, and now a Bellator champ. That's really impressive.
He's a problem for anybody.
Yeah, he is, dude. And his pace too. He doesn't get tired. All right, Vadim Nemkov submitted Julius Anglikas in the 4th round of the main event. Now I caught glimpses of this fight. Vadim got hurt pretty bad in the 1st round. Like Julius was 10-1 or 12-1 coming into this fight. He's a finisher. He's a really dangerous dude. He's Lithuanian. Nemkov survived the 1st round to come out and dominate in the next couple, and then got the Kimura victory in round 4. That was very exciting to see because I like Vadim Nemkov a lot. He is like the perfect Fedor Emelianenko prospect. Like for Fedor to be a coach, like I would expect his student to be as good as Nemkov is.
Absolutely. I think this one went a lot how people kind of expected it to be completely honest. I
Hmm.
feel like I think it was like 86% going into this fight. We're going for Vadim Nemkov, so that's how people expected it to go.
Yeah.
But you never know, man. In this sport, the underdogs can pull one from one when you didn't expect it.
Right. Yeah, for sure. No, Nemkov, his first loss came to Jiri Prokaska in Ryzen, and then he quit on the stool after the first round. And then his next fight was a loss to Carl Albrechtsen, who also won on Saturday in Bellator, the preliminary main event. He's doing really well. He lost a split decision to him. Since then, let's see, he's gone 9-0 with 7 finishes. That's pretty remarkable. The only person he couldn't finish was Phil Davis twice. So
And he's experienced. The more experience you have, the harder you are to finish.
yeah, man, I can't. How do you think Vadim Nemkov versus Corey Anderson goes down?
Man, that's tough to say.
Really tough.
If I really had to, I would say that Corey Anderson would be the underdog slightly, but I'd
Yeah,
have to put money on him probably. The matchup that I really want to see is Corey Anderson versus Phil Davis.
that's what I wanted to see that when they were in the UFC. Like I said, after Corey beat Glover Teixeira, I wanted to see that fight so bad, and that never happened. I want to see that really bad too.
Corey
I'm
fights
glad you said that.
just like Phil Davis, but just with a little bit
Right.
more confidence in his hands.
Yeah, and a little bit worse of a chin. Phil's never been finished. Corey's been KO'd quite a few times, but yeah, he's got more confidence in his striking. I think his pressure is heavier too. I'd really be interested to see how the wrestling goes between those two because I really don't know.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah, Phil Davis is such a long dude. He's got like it's really remarkable that he doesn't hit hard when you look at his body structure. But if he catches Corey good, I mean, he might be able to hurt him. He has gotten knockout victories since he's been in Bellator.
If he had his physique at a lighter weight where he could maybe move a little faster, he would hit hard because he has the exact physique that it takes. He has the upper body and lat strength that makes you hit hard. Literally,
Yeah,
I don't
right.
understand it.
Yeah,
I
me.
mean, I feel like in a way, he also just likes to pace himself and not throw everything into everything because he's never
He
actually sits
does.
down and just swings.
Right.
I feel like he doesn't want to tire himself out because he does carry that muscle in there. He has the
Plus, he
biggest
wants to
lats of
wrestle.
any fighter I've ever seen.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying, dude. Plus, he wants to wrestle, so you don't want to tire himself out for that. That makes sense.
Exactly.
All right, man. I think that about wraps it up for these post fights. We'll get back on here for a pre-fight this weekend. I'm thinking when I come to see you next week is when we should do the best fighters never won a belt one.
Yeah.
This sound good to you?
Yeah, I'll set up Tina. I'll set up that room and what we can do a video on that. Yeah.
All right, cool. Sounds good. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Like and subscribe. I'll see you next time. Thank you, Tyler. Have a good one,
Yep.
bud.
Take it easy.